Regular Croatian verbs are easy to conjugate for the subject, as for most, all that is required is to remove the ti ending, then add the appropriate ending for the subject doing the action. Here is a table of some regular verbs. If we remove the ti ending from gledati, imati and znati, we get gleda, ima and zna. And for voziti, hranati and učiti, we have vozi, hrani and uči. So verbs like these are fairly straightforward, and once you have learned the endings for the subject, the trickiest one is they or oni, because the ending changes depending on the final letter. But memorizing the ending for they can be simplified. Once the ending is removed, if the final letter is an A, then in order to put the U ending, it first requires a J, which does make the verb easier to pronounce. If the final letter is an I, then it changes to E. Irregular verbs are what makes learning verbs difficult. In English, we had to memorize that to write becomes I am writing, where we drop the E before adding ing, or to run becomes running, where we need to add a double letter before adding ing. But through repetition, we remember all of the differences in the verbs until we just know them. This process is the same in Croatian. There are simple irregular verbs that don't change much, like brinuti, which becomes brinem, and complex irregular verbs where a lot of the word has changed, like slati, which becomes šaljem. So, how do you remember all of the differences? Well, the best way is to just use them. Zvati, or to call, is an irregular verb, but it is a word that most beginners are familiar with in the form zovem. Vidjeti, to see, is another irregular verb that is probably familiar in the forms vidim and vidi. You could practice with our quizzes or make up your own sentences. Maybe you want to know how to form the verb, so looking up our Croatian Grammar and Dictionary would be helpful, as this specifies how to conjugate each verb. We also have included whether they are perfect or imperfect verbs. Some people may just want to know how to pair up verbs, for example, pisati, and just learn that pisati equals pishem, pishesh, etc., without caring why it is happening. Using a translator is really helpful to see how the word changes. Typing in to write should give you pisati, then changing that to I write, you should get pishem. Sometimes you may need to change how you write the words or add extra for clarification in order to get the correct verb. Let's say you wanted to know what the conjugation was of the verb brati, which means to pick, collect or harvest. Using Google Translate, if you type in to pick, you will get pokupiti. Changing this to just pick, you get odabrati. I pick is ja biram, and adding context, I pick fruit, and you get berem voce. In this table we can see how important it is to know what action we actually want. All of these verbs are actually correct, but each verb conveys slightly different meanings. In order to find the verb conjugations of brati, using the word pick, only I pick gave us the verb brati. Using the word collect didn't give us any forms of brati, and using the word harvest gave us the verb brati using I harvest and I harvest fruit. There are some downsides to using a translator though, as it is sometimes quite difficult to get the word you are looking for. Sometimes it is the difference between the perfect and imperfect verbs which don't always conjugate the same way. At the end of this video, we have 2 tables for you to try out yourself. Installing the Croatian language pack is helpful too, as when you type in the Croatian language, it will come up as a spelling error if you have used an incorrect form of a verb. For example, if you were to type I send as SLAM instead of shalem, it will show up as a mistake. For me personally, I like to know how the verb is formed so that I can understand the process, but in practical terms, I like to pair the verb with the form I takes, like brati is berem, so that's what I recall, and make the adjustments to the other subjects from there. In order to gain the recall, for me, typing it out in sentences works best. I also keep a spreadsheet with any words that don't seem to behave as I would expect. But for other people, reciting words, sentences, and associations works better. Or maybe you like to watch, so flashcards could be a better option. Using our study sets on Quizlet would be ideal for this. So, what learning techniques help you? How do you keep track of new, unusual, or irregular words? Pop it in the comments below, as I am sure it will benefit others. Here are a couple of exercises for you. In the first table, see if you can put these back into the dictionary form. And in the second table, try conjugating these into the first person singular I or ya. Remember that practice and exposure are key. As you encounter more verbs, you'll become adept at distinguishing regular from irregular ones. And good luck with your learning journey. Vidimo se.